You're going to sit wherever you feel. Sit wherever. No, find a place. Turning here.
Traziem newcomers, please, we are going to ask you to be really silent. Thank you. We now call on the first speaker from the proposition team for the motion, this House believes children should not attend sleepover parties.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and fellow debaters. I'm the first speaker from the proposition team, and these are my teammates. We're here to defend the motion. This House believes children should not attend sleepover parties. First, I'll start by defining the motion. A sleepover party is a party organized at someone's house and after which all the guests sleep over, and the child is a young person who hasn't reached the age of 18. My argument is a child is immature and lacks life experience. The second speaker's argument is children are too young to go to sleepover parties since they can put themselves and others at risk. That's why we believe children who attend sleepover parties might find themselves in situations where their lack of maturity could lead them to misbehave. What's more, children aren't experienced enough to deal with new problems and find the appropriate solution on their own.
Children, dear judges, still need their parents' guidance and protection. Dealing with freedom requires a lot of maturity. Don't you think so? Over and above that, at sleepover parties, a child is left alone at someone else's house and might meet people older than them or children who have bad habits or manners. And since children are very easily influenced and like imitating others, they might learn these habits. For example, children left alone in the company of strangers or grown-ups who smoke, swear, drink, can end up imitating them and learning such bad things.
Therefore, we, the proposition team, believe children under 18 aren't yet ready to sleep outside their houses without their parents before reaching maturity and gaining enough experience, which will allow them to make the right choices and decisions.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and fellow debaters. I'm the first speaker of the opposition team, and I will rebut what the first speaker of the proposition team said. He said that children are immature and lack experience, but we, the opposition team, believe that children should learn how to become responsible and gain life experience. Back to my argument, which is children should learn how to become responsible. Children should attend sleepover parties in order to become autonomous. The second speaker's argument is children will have a better social life when they go to sleepover parties. By sleeping away from their parents, children can learn how to behave independently and take decisions. They will have fun and learn how to manage their time and respect others. By mixing with friends their age at parties and spending long hours with them, they will be sharing in food, rooms, and fun together. Moreover, children will become stronger and will learn how to defend themselves and find solutions to problems on their own. So, If children are educated properly by their parents and school, they won't behave irresponsibly and get in trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you think children should have some freedom in order to learn how to become autonomous? Of course they should. And sleepover parties can definitely be helpful to reach this autonomy. Therefore, we beg you to stand with us and oppose the motion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the second speaker from the proposition team. My argument is, a child might put himself or others in trouble. But first, I will start by rebutting what the first speaker from the opposition team said. He said that a child learns to be autonomous and rely on himself when he is on his own and away from his parents at sleepover parties. But this is exactly why we, the proposition team, object this idea. A child can't always make the right choices, and away from adult supervision, he might misbehave and hurt himself. Now, back to my argument. At sleepover parties, children can put themselves or others at risk. When children are together, it's a known fact that they get more excited and likely to behave irresponsibly. When children are left alone with peers, they can do things that they would refrain from doing in the presence of their parents. Sometimes, this behavior can be extremely dangerous.
As my fellow first speaker proved to you, children lack experience and maturity and act impulsively. That's why we believe they shouldn't be left alone without close other supervision. Parents have the role to watch over their children closely until they are sure that they are mature enough to handle new situations on their own and act responsibly. We understand that the child needs to be among friends and learn how to behave independently, but this can be done at parties, at school, at outings, even at home, not necessarily at sleepover parties where serious risks and dangers can be encountered. For children's safety and that of others, dear judges and audience, we the proposition team strongly believe children shouldn't be allowed to attend sleepover before 18.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable judges and fellow debaters. I'm the second speaker of the opposition team, and I rebut what the second speaker of the proposition team said. He said that children will put themselves and others at risk. But why should we let these negative thoughts cross our mind? On the contrary, if children were taught what to do and not to do, then they will not act irresponsibly and get themselves or others in dangerous situations. Now, back to my argument, which is, children will have a better social life when they attend sleepover parties. Being sociable is really important, and having friends is really healthy for a child's personality development. So, when they are attending sleepover parties, a child has the opportunity to socialize, make new friends, and make decisions without his or her parents' interference and influence.
It's true that parents should always be around to watch their children, but children also have all the right to choose their friends and spend time with them far from other constant supervisions. Does a child have the freedom of expression, the freedom of choice?
We believe it is really necessary for a child to be himself and grow up in a circle of well-selected friends his age. Ladies and gentlemen, we, the opposition team, believe it is quite normal and even necessary for children to go to sleepover parties in order to socialize and grow into independent, healthy adults. So we beg you to side with us and oppose.
judges, and fellow debaters. I'm here to brief you on the debate that went on between the proposition team and the opposition team on the motion. This House believes that children should not attend sleepover parties. The proposition team support the motion. They claim that children are immature to go to sleepover parties and lack experience to sort out problems on their own, while the opposition team opposed the motion and find it beneficial for children to attend sleepover parties as they believe that such events help them become autonomous and responsible. The proposition team spoke about dangers children might face that can cause them and others harm when they aren't attended by adults at sleepover parties. On the other hand, the opposition team praise such occasions and find them necessary for a child's healthy upbringing, claiming that those parties can nourish his social life. Both teams came up with logical arguments and justified them accordingly. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to side with any of the two teams or say who is right or wrong. So I simply leave it for the judges to make their own decisions. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know that we are usually 3 speakers, but today we separated the second speakers and we have an additional summary speaker, just so that we give the chance to every debater here to show what they have. Same for the juniors.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and fellow debaters. I am the first speaker of the proposition team and I'm here to defend the motion. This House believes that large tech companies should refuse to release data on their customers to the government because it's a sacred right to preserve this confidentially. Government should understand that every customer has all his rights to preserve this personal data, or if I may say secrets, unveiled. We all know that each company's life source is its customers. Therefore, in order for it to survive, it has to fully satisfy them. So the government will do everything in its power to ensure that satisfaction. I'll start by signposting my arguments as well as the second speaker argument. My argument is, large tech companies should refuse to release data to their customers even if it's against the law, in order to protect their businesses and reduce the loss of the customers. The second speaker argument is, large tech companies should refuse to release data to the customers to the government, even if it's against the law, in order to keep the back door closed to bad guys. Request by governments or intelligent access to access the company's data is one of the hardest issues to work through. Customers begin consuming from other companies once they feel that their personal data and private issues are being disclosed. Therefore, companies should refuse to release any information about their clients, even if it's against the law. It's true that sometimes the situation can be critical when it comes to war, terrorism, trafficking of drugs, trade of weapons, or any other illegal issues. Therefore, requires the interference of the government in order to bring about safety to the country. However, such interference must be restricted to, let's say, confiscating a laptop or a mobile phone suspect. If we were to allow governments to have access to any of the customers' data without their knowledge, then we're opening the door to anyone to spy on anyone. So spies would spy on spies. Anyway, this delicate issue would be discussed by our second speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and fellow debaters, our house is here to advocate the right for companies to refuse to release any information about their clients. We have given you all the dangerous consequences that can result from this leakage and how devastating it is for the customer and the company to face such a crisis. Those large high-tech companies have huge capitals and employ huge numbers of customers. They are well reputed and serve each one of us and facilitate our life as well. The customers are the base of their success. They would never upset them or disappoint them. Governments claim that having access to data will help them track terrorism and control violence attacks. But what about people's businesses? Won't they get affected and lose billions of dollars? Won't people's private lives be intruded? Honorable judges, dear audience, and fellow debaters, we, the proposition team, strongly believe that large tech companies should not release any data on their customers because they are behind their success, and any leakage of data on them will put their businesses at stake. We beg you to propose.
Hello, honorable judges, fellow debaters. We are the first speaker of the opposition team, and our arguments are: big tech companies should cooperate fully with the government to prevent potential crimes, protect people, and force imminent treaties. Tax evasion can only be controlled if the government is given access of data of potential financial crime suspects.
I'm going to start by rebutting what the first speaker of the proposition team said. She said that companies should refuse to release data to the government because it's a sacred right to keep this confidentially. But isn't safety, people's well-being, and security a sacred right as well? She also said that by releasing data to the government, we would be opening doors for terrorists and spies. But let's face it, terrorism is already there. The only thing that we would actually be doing is reducing it to a minimum. Finally, she stated that governments should confiscate laptops or mobile phones from suspects. But I don't think that confiscating a simple laptop will actually help us solve the terrorist problem and grant us access to global security. Now back to my speech. There is no doubt that large tech companies' first concern is the protection of their customers' privacy, to guarantee their loyalty and increase the sales of the company. But when it comes to global security, national security, or people's well-being, internal business policies should be broken and law given priority. Companies claim that cybersecurity used today is untouchable even by those companies. But we, the opposition team, believe it to be a tactic used by those companies to protect their customers' privacy and avoid abiding by the law. If encrypted data was undecipherable, then how could hackers get the data of 57 million Uber customers? Can't you see that companies are taking into consideration people's privacy more than the well-being of their customers? There should be a way to reveal data to law enforcement forces only. The only way for governments to prevent terrorist attacks is by being granted access to mobile phone and email in order to break any terrorist cell formation or contacts of citizens with organizations such as ISIS.
In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, technological progress has become an integral part of our daily life, and tech companies shouldn't prioritize their interests over people's security. Cooperation between companies and law enforcement forces is crucial for our safety. So we, the opposition team, very strongly beg you to support us and contribute in the global security.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, fellow debaters, and dear audience. I am the second speaker of the proposition team, and I rebut what the first speaker of the opposition team said. Ladies and gentlemen, our House supports the motion and find it illogical and even inhuman for large tech companies to release data on their customers, as this will open backdoor to bad guys. To begin with, let us see how backdoor can be harmful to tech companies and who the bad guys are. First, when phone data, for example, is protected and can no longer be accessed by criminals, governments, or rogue employees. For a tech company to encrypt data, they must be doing it for protection against cyber criminals, industrial competitors, and even foreign and local governments. Therefore, a customer's data can either be vulnerable to eavesdropping or is secure from eavesdropping from any party. The proposition team believe that backdoor access built for good guys is routinely used by the bad guys too. In 2010, Chinese hackers subverted an intercept system which Google had put into Gmail to comply with US government surveillance requests. And this is not a way to track lawbreakers. In fact, in tracking suspects, government officials would be spying on any citizen's personal life or business. We believe it is not the company's role to engage in investigations, but it is the government's duty to find alternative ways to arrest those criminals. And the worst of all is that governments and justice departments are constantly putting pressure on high-tech companies to decrypt data that can help them track terrorists, criminals, and lawbreakers. Unfortunately, politicians are referring to terrorist attacks such as San Bernardino attack and West Michigan Bridge attack in March 2017 to force Apple firms to decrypt data. These politicians are creating fear in the society. But despite all government surveillance efforts and the huge efforts making, nothing has changed. Take a look around you. Have pedophiles, kidnappers, drug dealers, terrorists reduced or disappeared or reduced in number? On the contrary, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They've been multiplied. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, the opposition teams seem to contradict themselves. They are demanding the release of the company's data to governments and seem to be sure that no one else would have access to it. But how can that be? We all know that backdoors are open to anyone, even to employees in the company itself, or to a police agent who can be an agent for a terrorist group as well. If you really think of what governments can do when they put companies under surveillance and access their data, you'll be shocked, and I don't think any one of you can accept that. Why should any one of us endure this humiliation? How can the opposition team ask for that? Wouldn't they feel offended if their personal data were diffused to everyone across the world? I don't think the opposition team have really thought about the consequences of such a request by the government. They are intruding on our private life. Our House denies this law and considers the government's request against human rights. Let's take the example of Apple Company, one of the high-tech leading companies. It has made encryption the easy-to-use default and now protects the contents of its customer's device. It is only he, the holder of an iPad, a laptop, or a mobile phone who decrypts what is on his device and no one else. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, giving the government a decryption key would result in devastating effects. First, multinational companies will not be able to refuse foreign governments that demand access. Second, exploitation of the US government's key by hackers will be a significant risk. Mr. Speaker, hackers are everywhere. So let me ask you a question. Why should I wait till hackers hold me hostage and access all my personal data? The solution is here, encryption. We ask you to support us and propose. Thank you.
Hello, honorable judges, dear audience, fellow debaters. I'm the second speaker of the opposition team. For the motion, this House believes that large tech companies should refuse to release data on their customers to governments even if it's against the law. But we, the opposition team, strongly disagree with that for the following reason. Refusing to release data to government will help companies and people to commit money laundering and evading paying taxes. First, I'm going to rebut what the second speaker of the proposition team said. He first said that these criminals are multiplying and being everywhere. So don't you think if we create a system that is secure, can't we decrease this number? Then he claimed that backdoors could be open for bad guys. As I said before, if we have a secure world, this backdoor could be only used by the government. Back to my speech. Some tech companies cover up some major and minor crimes, such as money laundering and evading paying taxes, willingly or not, but refusing to cooperate with the government. So, money laundering is the process of transforming profits from crimes and corruption into supposedly legitimate assets coming from various illicit activities. So not our people only bad guys, but they have, but they have their back covered by tech companies which are offering their services to protect them and protect their crimes. So people are evading paying taxes.
Recently, the biggest fiscal scandals are the Panama and Paradise Papers. The Panama Papers was one of the largest ever releases of information about secret offshore companies and the people behind them. The impact of Panama Papers has been epic. With all of this corruption, all of these lies, don't you think it would have been discovered or even prevented if governments had the right to get information from tech companies about their clients if they suspected someone? I believe that yes, it would have been possible to break the corruption chain. We strongly believe that governments with the help of technology could have stopped it. Another example is that of the Paradise Papers, which was recently leaked. The Paradise Paper is a set of 13.4 million confidential electronic documents. And if you were wondering, this was a case of trillions of dollars that weren't paid to the government that could have been used for schools and hospitals. But where did it go? It went to very wealthy people who don't need the money to survive, or powerful companies that would function fine without it. But since the government couldn't put its hands on the data of these offshore companies, this fraud was discovered way too late. But we all know that those don't function alone. And in democracies, there are three powers that are independent and equal. So law enforcement power might reveal plots of tax evasion, even of people in the government. In fact, if total cybersecurity hasn't been reached and hacking is possible, why not open a backdoor to the good guys? For the reasons stated above and the reason my fellow teammates stated, no thanks. We believe that it's more than necessary for the government to have the right to obtain data from these companies and stop the corruption that's taking over our world today. This is why, Mr. Speaker, we beg you to oppose.
Good evening, fellow debaters and dear audience. I'm the third speaker from the proposition team, and I'm here to convince you that tech companies shouldn't release data. Let me ask you something. Why should those tech companies do the job of the government? It's the government's role to protect their citizens. It is not the tech companies. The government shouldn't depend on tech companies to be able to put their hands on information that may be helpful in an investigation. So they should find other solutions to do so. The opposition team's main argument was about security, and they seem to forget that we talked about security too. We also talked about how releasing data may affect their businesses, the tech companies' businesses. And the opposition team said that this was nowhere a problem in front of terrorism. But they seem to ignore that terrorism was caused also if tech companies release data and open this back door to bad guys, which are hackers, which would lead to, we don't even know what they could do. Once hackers, or I could even say criminals, put their hands on this kind of information, which are bank accounts, phone numbers, email addresses, and locations, who knows what they could do? And not only that, but the whole country would be invading people's lives. They would be contradicting the basic human right to privacy. They also said that hackers already can hack and get the information they want. But this is illogical. They are saying that they can already hack and get what they want, so why not give it all to them and releasing this data to the government? They also seem to forget that there are exceptions where criminals are hiding in the government. While the tech companies think that they're releasing data to protect the population, they would actually be helping criminals by landing them to them. They also said, there's also an important word that was suspect. Suspect means that they may be innocent. And how could this be? How could you think that it is normal to ruin an innocent man's life? Let me give you an example. If the police was investigating someone and it was a suspect, that means that he may be innocent and that he had nothing to do with the crime they were talking about. The company would release data and embarrass him in front of his whole country while he had nothing to do with it. And not only that, but once those tech companies leak encrypted data, this would break any trust between the company and their customers. And the population will also feel endangered, which they forgot to state, because once they can see that their whole lives can be released in the whole world in a single action, this scares them because they would be scared to live in a society where in a second, everything they thought was their private lives may be known by every single person in the room. We also talked about how this may be converting democratic regimes to authoritarian regimes, because once this data is out there, it would be so easy to blackmail them and control them, and this would lead to more terror than there ever is right now. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and fellow debaters. I'm the third speaker of the opposition team.